This is a twice-time record for the saving around. Yeah, Boeing, Paris, Airshore, I don't know, remember the auto like Kong or some Syria or some movie a few minutes out of it. Um, that's a question mark of calibrating approach interdependence out of diversification that you see by B2B business from the coming out of um, uh, components out to be and the components out compounding out to be components out of the forming of the figment ECC by Boom Super Sonic and the military was in after recognition that I am number the further out to be of Guangdong because of Macau and Hong Kong out to be in the forming out of similarity of artificial intelligence companies out to be an EPC of production from Shenzhen out to be a necessary effort in the affording out of implication or the uncertainty in the deep sea out of because out to be the majority the problem out unemployment rate at ECC or the forming out of possibility entrepreneur acting out of before the forming out of community or to be thinking out to be the entrepreneur like in the pandemic increase of former also or to be or to see 700,000 job alone out to be for 2030 or to be in China or to be as an aspect or to be when you think out to be for the clean for the hydrogen or to be hydro energy challenges out of being a matrix of high levels, psychomobility, everything. I remember that out of successful packaging and plastic out of being a form out of recycled plastic collection out of the environment like fish farming 5 to 10% of one company was insist for theoretical like a farmer out of using out for the fleece and then a low cost solution without the CO transpiration and contradiction out of in some farming or flattening out of hydrofugai fishing out of banking of fugo out of the and the possibility out of the some low cost solutioning out of the from hemp fiber, hemp textile and similarity out of 24 hours and out of 2023 out of similarity of 75 times out of the great out of Mexico and the restoration organization, so the including out the natives are not forget the war building, the minimum baggage out of the including Spanish linguistic out of the and the highest minimum baggage out of the Mechanismen also the same reality that no we are the children placement out to be and instead some mentioning out to be bringing the people the possibility of greener possibilities in some legal act like the World Drug Report out to be a technological dynamic changing of person out like the forming restriction changing or to be also in a non-feeding trading zone to finding some new consumer demand out to be in the forming order when you think out this had as first change at the beginning of the first 2 quarter labor market the consumer market out of that would also increase out to be that natural former out to be out of the bricks, not a form of new development bank out of 40 million out to be and what are the return of investment out to be when you think out to be out of yielding or similarity of agency or forming of 1 million cap in Europe 27 under 2 point percentage or to be a form of daily living then we had no tax seven possibilities and by $124 out to be in the thing of Audi as an agent but over this X generating out to be max to 2 billion or 40,000 companies or 40,000 companies out to be effect on the offer out of out to the practicing out to be some effect out to the resolution also in the forming of similarity of some laissez-faire out of the forming out of borders out to be infrastructure and the community out to be accessing out to be the energy out of the Malaysia of institution for the first world bank that are investigating known how to be of Fugo and then last year mentioning like Nippon how to be of people saving how to be for the possibility of biogas like the fertilizer. I had a thought about a implementation of like rice similarity or similarity of 1 year how to be in the farming out of charcoal or whatever combination of food like coming out of West like in glass noodles rice noodles or the farming like glass noodle called or the diversity of combination of farming out of this rotation out of the out out of the herbals out of the society in the farming out of vegetarian and in the farming out of similarity and combination of sex as possibility out of hybrid out of or more similarity, especially in the geopolitics for energy and solar panel over later out to be a possibility with some forming out of wood in the form of metal out to be shortening of 1 quarter. I think out of water before they had to increase out more of doing uncertainty so the diversity of female pillars out of meaning the similarity. And then you had artificial intelligence think or to be equal now to be when you have the others of artificial intelligence of recommendation like Bain, how does the University of hedge fund private equity platform as extraction how to be seen, how to be similarity or the specification of artificial intelligence like in one long to be this might how similar to improve um cause of Sheng Sheng in the forming out of some data solution society efforts and efforts out of the approach in shaping global avoiding so also out of like the forming out of less elasticity out of bust out to be by the luxury hyperfinance um, um, for Jordan, that means out to be there out of the consumption rate out of China, use 77 out to be anti-dumping consumption, 30 companies on the duty margin, Spain out to be from a solution, stakeholder and shareholder environment, deepening economic reforms out of raising costs in the forming out of question mark how to be now the sectors how to be activated, innovative, adaptive, towards and forward spirit and spiritual out of source open source or one piece first effect revenue growth cycle less elasticity, life track, how to be mentioned, how to be informed, one of the two free amendment still out of the farming, out of GDP, domestic demand, and the farming out of potential intensify, how to be not the company that borders, how to be into cultural IP, intellectual property, out of proper the open market and the farming out of similarity. First, second effect, how to be that you can see that can download it. I think WhatsApp and Telegram about to see the world by Starlink and a lot of question mark now with iPhone, the similarity of CG Axon, how to be from a OneWeb either side and from Starlink, how to be of Wi-Fi function, suborbital characteristic, how to be mobility, and the forming out of filter, similarity of possibilities after the iridium agent uh, biodiversity conversation, say the open resource and the source and incompatibility, or to be like the forming out of from the French after the forming out of support out to be of one of our for Bill out to be the English change of the main linguistic of a word and nuancing out of Oracle or Linux out to be the specification of individual artificial intelligence functioning out to be in one half executed in similarity wow that you use out of similarity of the special effect parts of companies and similarity of bridge spacing with tendency and development of gaps and similarity when you see the agents and the forming out of the effect that NVIDIA had in the one defense and power plant and without atomic solar energy, water, the form out of wind, biogas, fertilizer, basic elements out of doing renewable, resourceable, future and cultivatable and recoverable out of carbon making a solution out of diversity of material out of not only out of the construction also for other materials out of the from hand plastic consumption or diversity of symbiotic out of hand plastic less of time so solutioning out of solar calculation also instead of similar when I see some samurai in the last year already some middle age metal functioning of ability of some unites out of the creative thing and realizing out of the flexibility ability and dimension out of technical experience using vitality team project out of lifelong learning and general that's not by economics or by time business development out of this out of similarity the question mark of the identity or the fund of range or the in the fund of the metric out of the of the woman and take out of active and institution out of the by the forming out of similarity of the diversity and scaling out of the seed and decision of discernment out of recipient and similarity out of 50,000 employees by 100 million agents of CGO and similarity wenn I nie wieder, it's only one paradigm, how to be last year, how to be 4,000 small, like Mistral open area, out of the Mistral, how to be into forming out of 1 cent by venture capital by the state of institution, out of acquisition that Togo now had, how to be being with element age regulated, how to be in the similarity of further improvement, how to be for the stability in the funding, all niche market from und auf drei Autobiografie August of Boston body possibility out of forming out of heroic forming out of contradiction society that we call antonym, not antonym out of the of some bad my some security ECC and talking about styling the dimension of CD Axon policy tension straight out to be the second effect on imaging out to be out of innovation 74,000 robotic-related companies out to be of longer out to be 2020 over above 450 new undergraduate programs out to be the accelerator of higher quality manufacturing transformation to be now 3.5% to 4% in 1 year. To be out of increase of anything in investment. The GJE CPE has not BOD that's also out to be making lots of battles for BOD that has increased about 50% out to be for the pandemic. I think out to be was 400,000 alone out to be of Tesla said, and then after 3 million, how to be 4.5 billion, everyone how to be the Great Barrier in the San Francisco, how to be in the similarity and solve how to be a forest, the first of Henry Ford, how to be in the farming out of north of Rio, out um, the similarity out to be of coast using and rivering out to be in the farming out of Essex out to be of similarity when you think the ranking out of the 10% from 10.5 of GDP national out to be in the farming of aspect out to be doesn't change something. A cow and only its own don't change thing easy here Hong Kong out to be as out of this new focus manufacturing only some out of this diversification was a focus out to be some powerhouse of textiles to be for in the PPE and things to be for the solution out to be because of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. I think in the moment leaded after the movie out to be in some coming out of the tariff problems out in to be not members out to be but on PPE at the moment for monthly and then for the consumer price, we already, but for the tax question fund of it, it's mentioned to be a tighter booking of business performance out of the metric out of soft and hardware to out of data similarity of the business area. And then I remember some innovation hub I watched out to be of design. There was some software vision about a 4 story guy that nothing is points also not see the read out to be um, she was in Harvard MIT and designing the graduation to be studying e-learning how to be I think this year I learned I think I was on that and then Michigan Economic Development Corporation to be out of MIT a very expected new income review. This global 50% of the IPOs and out of the property out to be with the fund out of IPO or stock market going to be you see the B2B business out of out of free not a B2C drama to be and then the comparison out of Vita Lebanon because of French Revolution and leader says nothing liberty, peace and freedom out of or something out of freedom, equality, equal equality, 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 and out of diversity, diversification, and the farming out of freedom out to be and capitalism for major freedom first retailing of Hong Kong expect a lowering rates out to be in the consumer demand to be regulated out of the keys out to be the higher consumption out of GNE gross national income and the CP of key issues out to be then you think out to be out of the 45 presidency of diversity of service aluminum and the 10 out to be of consumption CC like the forming of mice without the fear out to be forming out of the balloon movement of electric user and reduce when you buy some electric vehicle testing the diversity of electricity price and charging the question mark or to be out of adaptability or accountability or to be of functioning in the form of information family unity and oil consumption or to be secondary effect or to be that was all out of the out of the break out of farming out of further improving the crypto out of one maybe out of EU and 27 also for the farming of cross border or to be as a solution last year out to be also 10% of the OTC Silicon Valley Swiss or other bank out of Swiss that has get bankruptcy and people like me again the 10% out to be out of Asian also succession I said out of trillion out to be the succession out to be later maybe one of the show CD report maybe mentioned China and the US, yeah, it's fair that to be, I think about what it is to be, so that was big more, so this was basically already last year, so that before that around a telegram of me, and then one quarter, next to one quarter, already 3 quarter, the problem of telegram is that TMTTO about the link tree and some other possibilities are to be work-life balance out of work life now and